Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Kenneth Bolito, also known as the Techite, and this is another tech news update. And basically, this is to cover what happened at CES right after I made the video yesterday, as well as what happened today in the tech world, specifically CES announcements, as well as the Mac App Store. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off with the Mac App Store. And before I get started with this, actually, I know a lot of you will be asking me how to put this on your Mac. And it's actually very simple. All you have to do is go on the top left-hand side of your screen to the Apple logo. You click on that and click on Software Update. Do all of the things that it wants you to do. It'll download all of the updates, install them, and restart your computer. Once your computer is restarted, you should be welcome to a App Store icon on your dock, and you could go ahead and click on that. And so this whole thing, the Mac App Store, it's pretty much just like the version on the iOS, except it looks more like the iOS App Store on iTunes. But generally, the browsing experience is the same. You can go through categories and download different apps via categories. You can view top apps. You can view featured apps. You can view top selling apps, different kinds of apps. And basically, it's just as simple as one click and you could download the app and it's ready to run as soon as possible. Now, I really think that this is such a great tool for developers because it gets their applications out there. It makes it so much simpler to buy an application and to install an application. And the other cool thing is that if I am correct, they also have an approval process, just like on the iOS store. So basically, you know that your app that you're downloading will be running great on your computer, or at least decent, because it was approved. So this is just a great, safe way to get all the apps that you want. And surprisingly, the library that they have on the Mac App Store is pretty huge for something that just launched today. And I think that they actually started a developers program a while back, and that's how people got their apps so fast on here. But their library is just gigantic, so I applaud Apple for this smooth launch. And I just got to say that the majority of apps right now in the App Store are games. And a lot of these games are available on the iOS and have iOS counterparts, obviously, as I just said. And there are also really cool social networking apps such as Twitter and whatnot. And it's just really cool to have all of these on here because it sort of saves a lot of time from going to the web browser. Now, what's really cool about the Mac App Store is that it helps out a lot of the developers out there. And what I mean by that is it'll definitely do something like what happened with the iOS App Store, wherein a flood of developers started making apps and started making huge profits. And I really want to compare this because a lot of the people that make Mac apps don't make as much money as the people that make iOS apps. And this is really because, one, it gets really difficult to get your app out there on the market, and two, it's really difficult to get known. And with this tool, basically, it makes it so much easier to download apps. It makes it so much easier to find apps and search for what people need. And, well, this just makes it so much easier to make sales that this could actually make some profits and maybe give the developers a little boost in terms of sales. And just one last note on the Mac App Store. You'll see that I downloaded a bunch of apps already. I actually downloaded 5. I downloaded Twitter, Angry Birds, Chopper 2, Image Tricks Lite, which is free, and Swackit. Now, I did all of this in a matter of 3 minutes. I downloaded 5 apps in 3 minutes, just to show you how fast this downloading process was. It's crazy. It literally is the easiest thing to do, and it's so much easier than just going into individual sites and downloading individual apps. So we are going to move away from the Mac talk and go into the CES talk. And we're going to kick it off with Verizon, where they have a new line of 4G LTE products. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the Verizon smartphones. And if you're on another carrier just like me, you might get a little bit jealous considering that Verizon always gets the better smartphones. So basically for their 4G lineup, they're going to have the HTC Thunderbolt, the LG Revolution, the Motorola Droid Bionic 4G, and the Samsung 4G LTE smartphone. Basically, these phones have a lot in common. They're all 4.3-inch display phones, so yes, they are huge phones. They all have a rear and front-facing camera, with the rear being an HD capture and the front being for video chatting. And they all feature a 1 GHz processor, and they also all have the ability to become a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot via 4G. Now, the only difference between the phones are that the HTC Thunderbolt has HTC Sense with Skype mobile video calling. The Droid Bionic 4G has a dual-core 1 GHz processor, as well as a 512 MB DDR2 RAM. And the Samsung 4G LTE smartphone has some Samsung software in it. Now we're going to go ahead and start with the tablets. First up, they have the Motorola Xoom, that is spelled Xoom, and it's a 10.1-inch 4G LTE tablet. Not initially, it's going to have 3G first. It's going to be upgradable to 4G in the near future, and it features Android Honeycomb 3.0 OS. And with that, you can watch 1080p HD videos, as well as watch Adobe Flash videos. Now, there's a front-facing 2-megapixel camera for video chatting on the front, a 5-megapixel camera in the rear to watch 720p HD videos, and you can also use it as a Wi-Fi hotspot with 4G. Now, they also upgraded their Galaxy Tab for 4G LTE, and it's the same 7-inch enhanced TFT display with a 1024 by 600 WSVGA resolution. It features Android 2.2, Adobe Flash 10.1, an upgraded 1.2 GHz Cortex-A8 Hummingbird processor, a rear-facing 5-megapixel camera, and a front-facing 1.3 megapixel camera with the ability to video chat. Lastly, we have the MiFis and the mobile hotspots. The first one is the Novatel MiFi 4510L Intelligent Mobile Hotspot, which is essentially like their regular MiFi devices, except this one obviously does 4G as well as 3G, and it could accommodate up to 5 computers via Wi-Fi. And basically they have a Samsung version hotspot, and it's the exact same thing. So that's really it for the Verizon lineup. I mean, this is pretty good, and hopefully I could switch. So we're going to jump into what T-Mobile did at their CES press conference, and the first thing they unveiled was the G-Slate, a tablet that was made in collaboration with LG. Unfortunately, the only thing we do know is that it will have Android 3.0 Honeycomb. Oh, and it's going to be released sometime this year, but unfortunately we do not know when. Additionally, and probably their best announcement so far, starting today, their 4G network will increase its bandwidth to 42 megabits per second. That's about 2 times the speed. And this comes as a result of criticisms that they had received, basically claiming their network was not 4G. Now it'll be able to do that for 2/3 of its coverage zone by the end of the year. Additionally, and probably their best announcement so far, starting today, their 4G network will increase its bandwidth to 42 megabits per second. That's about 2 times the speed. And this comes as a result of criticisms that they had received, basically claiming their network was not 4G. Now it'll be able to do that for 2/3 of its coverage zone by the end of the year. T-Mobile's last announcement was actually really cool, and it was the Dell Streak 7, and basically it's their first 4G tablet. Now this features a dual-core 1 GHz NVIDIA Tegra 2 processor. You can make it a Wi-Fi hotspot for up to 5 devices. It features a 7-inch multi-touch capacitive interface that is 800 by 480 pixels. It does have Adobe Flash Player. It has a front-facing camera with a 1.3 megapixel resolution, and It has an SD card slot capable of up to 32 gigs. As for battery life, it is slated to last for 4 hours with continuous video play. Now, Research in Motion announced that their Blackberry Playbook will make a debut on Sprint's 4G network this summer. And if you don't remember the specs of this device or don't even know the specs of this device, basically a 7-inch screen tablet with a 1024 by 600 WSVGA resolution. It features BlackBerry's tablet OS, a 1 GHz dual-core processor, 1 GB of RAM, front-facing and rear-facing camera, and the rear-facing camera is 5 megapixels and is capable of recording at 1080p. It can play 1080p video. It outputs HDMI and even has Wi-Fi 802.11a, G, and N. Now, just like a lot of things at CES, we don't have an exact price or an exact date on when this is going to be released. So you're going to just have to wait and see the details on this product whenever they are released. Next up, I'm going to talk about some Xbox news. First of all, they sold 8 million Kinect units in 2 months, which is really, really impressive and shows how many loyal customers they actually have. Hulu Plus will be added to the software lineup that will be available on Xbox Live. And both Hulu Plus and Netflix will have Kinect control support. Now, as for Microsoft, they did have one other headline other than the one that I told you guys about yesterday. They are releasing a touch mouse for $80, and it's slated to include support for a wide amount of gestures, including pinch to zoom, flicking, and swiping. And basically, this will be connected via USB dongle rather than USB, and basically this is the competitor for Apple's Magic Mouse. Dell also had a really good CES this year, starting with their refreshes for the Alienware M17X as well as the XPS 17, where both computers will feature 120 Hz 3D HD screens as well as Sandy Bridge Intel CPUs. Additionally, Dell also announced their Dell Streak 7, which was also in the T-Mobile press conference that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And they also showed off their Dell Streak 10, which is essentially a larger version of the 7, but only for a few seconds, and unfortunately we'll have to find out about that at the next CES. Now, this year Sony didn't really announce too much. I mean, they announced some handycams and TVs, obviously, like they do every year. But there's some stuff that appealed me. For example, Sony announced the Ericsson Xperia Arc, which is a new smartphone with a 1 GHz Qualcomm processor, 4.2-inch screen with a 854 by 480 pixel resolution, an 8 megapixel camera with HD video, and Android 2.3 Gingerbread. And just like other Xperia phones, this has Sony's custom Android skin, which actually looks really sleek. Now, as for the PlayStation Phone, Sony CEO Kaz Hirai basically announced the PlayStation Phone without officially announcing it. He basically said that they're making products, especially smartphones, with things like the PlayStation success in mind. Basically, I think that they should just give it up already and release this thing, because it's generating a lot of hype, and I just want a PlayStation Phone. And hopefully they'll release it on T-Mobile. Finally, to end the day, we actually have another iPad 2 mock-up, which was also found by the guys at Engadget again, and this time it teases a 128 gig storage label on the back, and even shows a speaker grill that was shown in a leak a couple of months back. This one, just like the last mock-up, also had a rear-facing camera and a flat back, and the editor that posted this post on Engadget also said that the back of the device feels just the same as the original iPad in terms of the material. And finally, the front of the iPad 2 mock-up also features a front-facing camera, which seems about right considering that Apple wants its FaceTime service to take off. So this mock-up doesn't seem that fake at all. It could be legit, but only time will tell, and we're going to have to wait until Apple holds a press conference for the unveiling of their next-generation iPad. Now, as I said yesterday, because CES is such a large show and that there are so many unveilings and press releases, I cannot put every product and press release in this video. So I suggest that you guys go and check up some web blogs and news outlets, just to see what's going on with CES. And even more so, you should do that to see things more in detail in terms of what was described in this video, because obviously I didn't go into too much detail with the stuff that I mentioned here. So that's really it, guys. I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. Please rate, subscribe, and comment. Go check the description for all of the links to stories on each of the things that I mentioned in this video. And also, please rate, subscribe, and comment. I hope you enjoyed staying with me for the past 16 minutes, and I will see you guys later.